Do you hate Donald Trump? Do you think he's evil? Do you need him? Actually, I don't care what you think, because you're wrong. You need an adult in the room, and that's me. Hey, I'm Magi History and welcome to the Man Closet. I'm a new content creator and my channel is about everything I know. This video is my political opinion. I'm a social studies educator by day and a content creator in my off time. This channel allows me an outlet to speak my opinion. Still, I use my education, formal and informal, to inform the topics I speak on. In 2014, I didn't care for Donald Trump. In fact, I didn't like him at all. Mainly because he starred in what I refer to as rude live television. When I was young, I was constantly bullied and saw The Apprentice as humiliation entertainment. You know, the type of entertainment that basically makes fun of people or doesn't bring them in on the joke or does these things that are just, in my personal, mean-spirited. So, of course, I'm not going to like Donald Trump if he's doing that stuff on TV. And it just pisses me off when entertainers would make money that way because, I mean, it's just, I don't know, I guess it was bullied. It's a special subject for me. But in 2015, I began supporting Trump for president. I know. Why? Because the system had failed the American people as a collective, and I knew it was time for a new vision for America. I saw Trump as an interrupter, and that held my political values. See, I'm a Republican. Yeah, I know. But I'm a Republican. The reason why I was a Republican is I've actually done my work. I've studied both platforms over the history of both parties, Democrat and Republican, and I found that Republicans held the ideal of a republic, and the ideals of a republic that had equality, whereas the Democrat Party and the Democratic platform has also always been self-interest. They only want people, they need people to vote for them. So in order for them to do that, they promise things extra for those people versus every American. And to me, that doesn't make sense. If we are going to be a classical liberal society, we're going to need equality, not extra quality. I don't even know how to put it. Anyway, I'm a classical liberal, which means my ethics and beliefs equal the founding ideals of the United States of America because the government was a political experiment in classical liberal ideology. That's literally the way it was set up. Though the country was founded on classical liberalism, accepted social norms at the time did not meet those ideals. They were ideals and something we were trying to become. And over the 19th and 20th century, those ideals did become a reality. First, the American Civil War ended slavery, and Manifest Destiny gave us our contiguous United States, right? From sea to shining sea. Then workers in the industrial age, which was going on the whole entire time the United States was a country. Workers literally went from working in the fields and on farms half the year, sun up, sun down, and the other half chilling pretty much. And then they went to these factories and they were still expected to work from sun up to sun down with little protection. And instead of doing it 6 months out of the year, they ended up doing it the entire year. So that we had to evolve in that. So lots of stuff happened, and eventually workers' rights became workers' rights. So then equal voting rights came. After that, there was World War II, which resulted in the United States becoming a global power, which gave the U.S. a chance to expand the classical liberal social experiment across the world. This was done by setting up the United Nations to build a global framework where countries across the world agreed to organize in order to rebuild the world economically and socially in the classical liberal image. However, people in the West did believe that everyone else would adopt this classical liberal model, especially because the U.S. was leading the way and paid a lot of money. Unfortunately, there's the rise of communist China and the Soviet Union, who now, near the end of World War II, we had nuclear capability, which not only made us the economic power, but also the physical power, because we had the most powerful bombs in the world. But really quickly, the Soviet Union and China caught up. Therefore, there's a Cold War now, literally who's going to nuke who first. So instead of just rebuilding the world in this ideal image of equal rights and equal religion and equal this and equal that, the U.S. just basically started giving everybody money to be their friend and continued that for forever. Even today, you can still argue it's still being done. And we know this because of, well, the Common Era. But when we do this, all we're doing is we're creating a point where people go, oh, we'll be good if you give us money, and then they're not good. So that's not creating a liberal, classical liberalism. It's actually creating extra, probably more oppression. And that is, again, a personal opinion, but obviously there are people in the UN that are still doing horrible things and they get away with it, and we still give them money. So it didn't work out that way, right? Still, in the hopes we would win the Cold War, instead of demanding countries adopt Western ideas, especially in social freedoms of religion and tolerance, they were bought off to support us. This allowed the United States to prosper and become a more educated country. Still, post-World War II, our country still struggled with racism and sexism. Eventually, though, in 1964, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 created the legal end to racism and sexism. Equal rights. Equal rights under the law, which was the 14th Amendment, but we codified that so people would be treated equally. This, under the law, this was where the classical liberalism needed to stop. And then we needed to let society itself accept that and fix itself over time. And it was up to society to accept this, and these social norms would expand to become more liberal in a way. Instead, the government, for political power, especially Democrats, passed laws such as affirmative action and DEI, which violated the intention of the 14th Amendment, because it went from guaranteeing equal rights to being legal discrimination again. These social programs actually tilted the scales from being legal equality to legal advantage over other social groups in society. This is where modern liberalism diverges from the classic. In the ensuing years since 1964, instead of the government making sure people were not discriminated against, they became more discriminatory in the guise of equality. Since the baby boomer generation had nearly 60 years of economic prosperity with few interruptions, these extra rights to women and social minorities were manageable and somewhat understandable. Considering the early baby boomers were also part of the cohort that lived through this legal discrimination, such social justice kind of made sense. However, the ideas went from an attempt to fix social wrongs to becoming a social wrong. Generation X, which includes myself, were never born into legal discrimination. We had not participated in it whatsoever. Blaming the grandchildren or children for offenses of their parents or ancestors is pointless and just continues hate. Just as pointless to expect females and non-whites should be given an advantage to right a wrong in a world where every civilization participated in war and evil to establish their communities doesn't make sense. Go back far enough and every group is guilty of SA, war, and genocide. Therefore, legal equality is the most fair any society can become. Economics. In my life, I experienced discrimination from job opportunities and promotions due to being a white cis male. I could go into detail, but for the sake of time, just know I was told I was the manager's pick for several promotions at several jobs, but each time leadership went in another direction. Now this was for the jobs I was hired for. In the literal thousands of jobs I had applied for or who is the best candidate based on merit. It's just who gets the job, right? Given this legal basis for racism and gender discrimination, most white straight males give up trying to get the job they want or depend on their social, economic connections to get most positions. Most guys had to basically say, hey man, I need a job, can you help me out? Or hey, I went to the same school you did, or this or that. So they're going to use those social connections. Everyone uses their social connections, but white cis males, this was literally the only way that they got most of their jobs. Even today, it's way more common, even though HR tries to do away with that. And that's a whole different thing for a whole different other video. In today's web-based world, being the only applicant is very unlikely. So this means that all the successful white males, cis white males, must collude or be highly effective manipulators in order to survive or prosper as an employee. So yeah, I mean, most of the really successful white cis males I know are not very good people. And not because they're white cis males, it's because they had to find a way to get the job. Since I graduated high school in the early 90s, my generation has undergone economic and social crises that affect our economic success. 9/11, the housing boom then bust, the credit bust, and COVID are all times where I literally lost a job or I ended up losing less money. And most people were affected by that, but even more so people like me who kept on trying to get those jobs but kept on being put in the back of the line. So I would lose a job because I lost a job in 9/11. I lost a job in the housing crisis. I lost a job in the credit crisis. And well, you know what happened in COVID. All of which can be credited to the United States and other countries trifling in nation building, meddling in markets, financial markets, especially when it comes to the housing and credit bubbles. There's some other thoughts because government had made some changes to lending practices that caused a lot of those issues. And again, it was in the guise of trying to fix social equity or whatever you want to call it. Anyway, and the attempts to manipulate the world for profit only to fail. Many did so for reasons of globalist ideologies, of modern liberalism, and the neocons' nation building for profiteering. However, it's the common American who had to face the repercussions of a situation they did not create. Super frustrating because I was constantly busting my butt trying to make it, like a lot of people, not just cis white males, but majority of people who weren't wealthy or had social connections that gave them really good jobs. So we're the only ones being affected negatively in those economic crises. and global crises. But the newest example is not enforcing immigration laws in order to fill the country with cheap labor and future votes for Democrats. Economic labor theory 101. The less people you have to work, the more you must pay the people you have. To put it another way, the more qualified people you have, the less you can pay them. This is a lesson the Western world learned after the Great Plagues of Europe in the Middle Ages. The Black Plagues killed so many people that they went from having a surplus of labor to having a labor shortage, which actually grew the middle class in Europe. Therefore, only the rich and politicians benefit from lax immigration enforcement. So the richer get richer from it, and the politician gets more, but the average American doesn't get anything but problems. If you count yourself as a non-Trump supporter, then you must make your living in politics or are wealthy from investments. If not, and you still don't support him, you must be racist or sexist. If you don't support him because of economic policy, then you are using traditional approaches over a holistic one in economics. If you don't support him for other reasons, then you're attempting to slowly commit self-harm, or you just hate America. Now, hold on. Y'all think I'm jumping to conclusions, and I get that, but let me explain. Donald Trump's agenda makes perfect sense if you consider these things. Ending DEI/affirmative action in the higher mentality, which makes the organization stronger. Next, tariffs. Tariffs are not just a bargaining chip, but income to the government that decreases the dependency on other taxes. To offset tariffs, lower fuel prices, lowers the cost of production and logistics of goods. If not, increased wages will happen due to the lack of people willing to work for less money because illegals are gone and there is a lower population. Also, relocating businesses to America to avoid tariffs creates more jobs. Decreasing taxation on income also can offset the pain of some inflation. Cleaning out government waste and abuse. Over-regulation decreases the size of government, therefore decreases the cost of government and interference as well. Just like with most businesses or organizations, you will find that labor costs are always the highest cost. So the less labor you have, the more money you make or the more money you save if you're government or nonprofit. Right? Basic stuff here, people. As far as any belief in Donald Trump's threat to social liberalism, there is no track record for this beyond defining what the majority of the world accepts, that there is only two biological genders. That's it. Nothing else. So there you go. Negative reports by the news media or political rivals is because they fear the change in America to a more just country, to more fair country, and a richer country. Those who don't benefit from this manipulate you by any means necessary to hate Donald Trump and this agenda. History tells us that these times define an age. Some ages are born by death and through war and revolution, others by peaceful means. Peaceful times ultimately had good results, while death and revolution led to totalitarianism and despotism. Trump has been nothing but peaceful. So thank you, like and subscribe, and let me know what you think.